Schrödinger's cat. "Put that damn phone away," Ellie snapped at her sister. Mara screwed up her face, tuttered and exhaled a breath, strong enough to make her fringe briefly flip up. "I need to get my Amazon order in before 5 so I can get it tomorrow," she said. Ellie pushed one of the small cups she'd just filled across her coffee table towards Mara. "I don't care, turn it off." Turn it off, Mara said in a mocking tone. She'd been texting her husband, Jonathan, then remembered she needed to order some office supplies for the next day. Ellie's cat, who she'd lovingly named Imp, jumped up onto the table and almost knocked one of the cups over. "Careful, you little maniac," Ellie scolded him as he was scooped up in her arms and then delivered back to the floor. He was a jet-black Scottish fold with alarmingly yellow eyes. She'd had him since he was a kitten. He was the runt of the litter and seemed to make up for his small stature with an inquisitive and slightly mischievous nature. He was high energy and, typical of his breed, enjoyed tummy rubs and being cradled like a baby. One time Ellie had accidentally left the back door open and Imp had taken his chance to make a quick escape. After a long week of worry, daily searching and a lost cat poster campaign in the neighbourhood, he finally returned. He'd looked a bit frazzled and skinny, but he was otherwise fine. He did, however, seem a slightly different cat afterwards. Sometimes Ellie caught him staring at her while she showered, and often, she supposed, while she slept too. Rarely did she greet the waking world without Imp sat or laid nearby, staring at her with his large yellow eyes. Sadly, he'd also stopped enjoying tummy rubs, as she discovered after receiving brutal scratches in response to her attempts. Not the same cat at all, really. "OK, I'm done," Mara announced after she put her phone into her cardigan pocket. She had her hands in her lap and was fiddling with her wedding band. "So what do I have to do again?" Ellie stood up to fetch the rest of the items they needed and audibly ran through the list. A photo of the Hubble Space Telescope, a bottle of bubble bath, tea tree oil, and a vinyl record of Elvis singing Trouble. She laid the items out on the coffee table and sat down again. "These are the totems," she said. "You've got the sacrament there, so now we just need to say the limerick together. Drink the sacrament and that should do it." Mara looked at the green, diaphanous liquid in the cup in front of her. It gave off a little steam and smelled like permanent marker. "What the F is in that?" she asked. "Don't worry, it's all harmless ingredients. Herbs from the garden, a drop of absinthe, and some of the protein powder from Mother's kitchen. I boiled it all for at least 10 minutes. It's quite safe to drink," Ellie told her. "Yuck, OK, fine. Let's just get on with it then," Mara said with a look of disgust on her face. "Do you remember the limerick, Mara? It's important we say it correctly and at the same time." Mara looked up at her sister. Yes, I know it. I'm not a total idiot." "Well, yeah, not a total idiot," Ellie said sarcastically before laughing a little. Mara reached for her cup. "Oh, ha, come on then." Ellie also picked up her cup, and on a count of 3 they both recited the limerick. "Tir na nog, the toad and the frog, under the moon that shines so bright, these words we say, and together we pray, to summon the bringer of light." On finishing, the sisters drank from their cups. Mara knocked it back like a shot of tequila while holding her nose. Ellie took several gulps before she managed to finish drinking it all, wincing at the horrible taste with each swallow. "Yuck, yuck, yuck!" exclaimed Mara as she put her cup back on the table. She saw a flash of black fur as Imp suddenly ran up to her. He scratched her leg before running away and diving under a chair on the far side of the room. His piercing yellow eyes stared out from the darkness of his newly assumed safe space. "Ow!" Mara shouted. "Your cat is a little shit." Hey, don't say that. It's just a small scratch, Ellie said to placate her. She had also put her cup down and was sitting upright in her chair. OK, so now we just wait, I suppose. So, what are you going to wish for? Mara asked. The obvious, really. Money, Ellie replied. The house needs so much doing to it, and I haven't had a job in months. Is that it? Just going to fix up the house? No, I want to go travelling too. There's that castle in Germany our family used to own. I'd like to spend some time there. Well, you could just wish for enough money to buy it, right? Right, so what are you going to ask for? Ellie asked. I'm starting to show my age. I'd like to look like I did when I was 30 again, Mara replied. Ellie didn't think her sister looked that old. They were barely into their early 40s. Oh, OK. Mara was still inspecting the bleeding mark on her ankle when the doorbell rang. For what seemed like too long of a pause, the two sisters looked at each other in response to the outside intrusion. Ellie jumped up to see who it was. She looked through the peephole in the front door with her hand on the door lock, only willing to open it once she knew it was safe. It was dark outside, but her dim porch light was bright enough to show a delivery driver standing there, holding a small, brown package. There was a knock at the door, and she stepped back, surprised by the sound. Hang on, she announced as she unlocked the door and released the safety latch. On opening the door, the fluorescent white light of the hallway spilled onto the figure. Ellie could see details that weren't so obvious through the peephole. He was a dark-haired gentleman with deep eyes and a wide mouth, which he formed into a partial grin. His uniform was that typical of an Amazon driver, and his rolled-up sleeves revealed a dozen gold and silver bracelets on each of his wrists. He held up the parcel he was carrying, and in a caramel voice he said, "You ordered this?" Mara was still checking out the cat scratch on her leg when her sister returned with the delivery driver following closely behind. Oh, who's this? She asked as she stood up, a little confused. I think he's brought your Amazon order, Ellie said. Mara, still confused, checked the time on the mantelpiece clock before responding. That can't be right. It's only been an hour, and I think the order was next day delivery. The man smiled a partial grin again and placed the package he was holding onto the coffee table, next to the sisters' totems and empty cups. You both summoned me, he said. Ellie looked quizzically between her sister and the delivery man before suddenly understanding. Oh, you're not from Amazon, she exclaimed. You're him. The man nodded and flashed that strange grin again. Why are you dressed like a delivery driver? Mara asked, sounding a bit perplexed. I come in a form you can understand me, he said, his voice like melting butter. Oh, Mara responded as it finally dawned on her. Ellie had to clear her throat before speaking to the strange man. She was feeling nervous, which she hadn't expected to. But here she was in the presence of this powerful, ancient being. So now what happens? She asked him. What happens is you must complete my payment, and then I can grant your wishes, he said with an almost musical tone to his voice. But we already did the ritual, she retorted. No, all you have done is summon me. To grant your wishes, you must first pay me. Pay you with what? Mara asked. I'm sure you have no use for money. The man grinned and his eyes lit up briefly. I demand a sacrifice, he said. Mara and Ellie looked at each other, and then Mara looked at Imp. He hissed at her while pushing himself deeper into his safe space under the chair. No, not a blood sacrifice, the man went on. You must sacrifice the most powerful secrets you hold against each other. Secrets? Mara said with puzzlement. Not just any secrets, he replied. I need your deepest, darkest secrets. Those that would cause each other the greatest pain possible. That will be your payment. Ellie paced up and down the room, a look of self-examination plastered on her face. She knew that she had secrets that she kept from Mara. Maybe she'd told a few white lies to her before. Once, when they were just girls, she'd broken their mother's favourite ornament and blamed it on her younger sister. But that was trivial. There was, however, a very dark secret she was keeping. One that was almost too damning for her to even accept it was real. The one secret so painful, so full of betrayal, it could rend even close sisters apart. "No," she said, and looked at Mara. "I don't think this is worth it." Mara narrowed her eyes, then laughed. "Well, I'm telling mine, so you may as well. You were the one that talked me into this anyway. Whatever you're going to tell me, I'm sure we can work through it, right?" Ellie let out a sigh. "Not this." The man laughed a little and gave her a knowing smile. "Name your secrets now, or I must leave. My time here is limited." "Come on, Ellie, just say it," Mara demanded. Ellie sighed again, looked up at her sister and reluctantly agreed. "Okay, but listen, this happened when I wasn't in my right mind. You know, I lost my job and had been feeling aimless for a while. I took to drinking. Sometimes I'd have a glass of wine or two before lunch even. So this one time I was already pretty drunk when Jonathan came over to fix that leaky pipe in my bathroom." She shook her head and looked at Mara again. "You really want me to do this?" "Just fucking say it, Ellie." "It was a hot day. He'd taken his shirt off because he was sweating. I gave him a towel and offered him a spritzer to cool down. We drank a few, okay? We were both drunk and I was feeling depressed and lonely." Ellie trailed off. "Fucking say it," Mara shouted at her. Ellie sighed again and she put her hands together, almost like she was praying. "I was so lonely, Mara. Neither of us meant it to happen. It just happened." "You fucked my husband," Mara said matter-of-factly. "I'm sorry," Ellie said, no longer able to look at her sister. Mara took a breath. "I already knew." "So now you have both our darkest secrets," Mara said, while looking sternly at the man. "I think not," he said. "That is not your darkest secret, Mara. You have paid me nothing." Mara gave an indignant glare at the man, at first, and then at her treacherous sister. Ellie's eyes were wide and filled with tears. "When did you find out?" Ellie asked. "Jonathan told me the next day. We worked through it, but I forbade him from talking to you ever again. Did you ever wonder why he cut you off?" Ellie was shaking and trying to absorb the fact that Mara had known about her sleeping with her husband and had said nothing for months. "I just thought he was ashamed, like me, feeling guilty, feeling wrong." Ellie looked directly at her sister, red-faced with tears streaming down her cheeks. "I wish it never happened," she said. "Your wish is granted," the man declared loudly. "Ellie, why are you crying?" Mara asked. Her sister was confused and her eyes darted around the room before attempting to answer. "I don't know," she said. "Hey, where is Imp?" Ellie asked with a sick feeling in her stomach. "Imp? Ellie, hasn't your cat been dead for months?" Mara told her. "What? How?" her sister asked, alarmed. Mara had a sudden look of horror on her face and clutched herself with both arms. "Oh God, I think I killed him. I remember taking him and leaving your back door open, but I don't know why." There was a rising realisation within Ellie, a sense of dread that subsumed every part of her being. "How could you? Why would you?" "I'm not sure. I just remember being furious about something you did. I desperately wanted to hurt you, so I poisoned him and buried him in my garden." Mara felt like throwing up. "Now you have made your payment," the man announced, and flashed his weird grin at her. "I know I must have killed him, Ellie, but I wish I hadn't. You have to believe me." The man startled both sisters by clapping his hands together. "Your wish is granted," he said. He'd stopped grinning and instead had the bilious look of someone who had eaten too much. "My time here is over. I am leaving, but I warn you, do not ever try to summon me again. I do not like the taste of your souls. Very disagreeable." He staggered, almost drunkenly, towards the front door and burped loudly before slamming it behind him. After he had gone, the two women were still bewildered with what was going on. "Who was that?" Mara asked her sister. "I have no idea," Ellie said while shaking her head. "Wait, is that your package?" She was pointing at the small brown parcel that the man had left on the coffee table. Mara's mouth dropped open. "Hey, is it moving?" Ellie could see the package was shifting around slightly, and then a faint meow emanating from inside prompted her to pick it up and furiously tear it open. As soon as she saw his black fur and familiar yellow eyes, Imp leapt out and into Mara's arms. Small bits of cardboard and paper fell from his back as he turned himself belly up and began purring. "Imp!" Ellie shouted with joy. "Such a sweet little cat," Mara said.